Hey guys, Snoopy here today. I'm excited to share something I've been working on for a while with some friends, and we have an ARCS League on the Woodland Warriors Discord. And so I'm just going to run over some of the rules and basics, and then we're going to look at some of the scenarios we're going to have for Season 1. So this will be the first set of scenarios you can play starting, I believe, today or this week. So let's go ahead and look right at it. So this is a league promoted just by ARCS fans, and we want to promote a fun, competitive environment for games on a convenient place. So sometimes you want to play ARCS with people who are competitively minded, but there's not always convenient time to do that. And so we want to kind of make it where you can play a competitive game on your schedule. And so some goals we have is we want to have a stable, fun league. That's not just going to be a one-time thing, but it's going to last. It's going to offer players a place to easily schedule competitive games several days in advance and support multiple time zones and player counts. So it's not just going to be 4-player or 3-player or even just 2-player, but all three will be supported for this initial season. We have a link to the rules here. You need to have played the game and read through the rules first in order to play. You can play either on TTS or TTPG. By default, we're going to assume you're going to be able to play TTS, but you can always do Tabletop Playground instead if you talk to the players beforehand. And again, because you're scheduling these games, you can kind of make clear if you're looking for a TTS game or looking for a TTPG game instead. Streaming is encouraged when possible, but games need to be consented to be streamed. By default, the final matches will be streamed if possible. Now, let's look at the format. So this league is going to consist of seasons. And so a season is a 12 or 13 week length of time where games are played. And so we're going to track results. We're going to look at the standings over that period, and then it will conclude with a final match or a couple final matches where the top players play each other. A season may have unique rules relating to the draft, specific player count supported, fan content included, and other tweaks to encourage fun, competitive play. So unlike a tournament where you're going to have just bare bones and not really just much, a league is flexible enough where you can try different things and try fun ideas and include fan content in a way that you can play it enough to see what worked, what didn't work, and then just keep going with adjustments in the next season. So at the end of the season, there will be a final match with the top players, and then we're going to track season points and rank points. So season points are won through winning games and sometimes through great play, depending on the season. At the end of each season, your season points are converted to rank points and then reset to 0. So at the beginning of each season, everyone starts at ground 0, but rank points are your cumulative rankings from the previous seasons. And so the way to think about this is that as you get season points, those are always going to convert to just rank points, but we're going to adjust them based on your win rate. And this is going to discourage people from just playing a lot just for the sake of rank points, but just really encourage you to try to win. So let's look at Season 1. So we're going to have drafts, or we call scenario drafts, where the setup card, the leaders, and the lore cards are predetermined and set prior to the base game of ARCS. But the court deck, the player seeding, and the starting initiative are still determined randomly. So all league games must be drafted according to this the current scenario. So we're going to have a 2-week period where players can play a given scenario, and we'll have a scenario for a 2-player game, a scenario for a 3-player game, and a scenario for 4-player games. And so we're going to announce the scenario approximately 1 day before it begins. And then to qualify for the final match, you need to have at least 4 league games, regardless of player count, under your belt. And then you need to have at least played in 3 of the scenarios of that particular player count. And then we give an example. Basically, you need to play 4 total games over a 12-week period. And then 3 of those games need to be in the same player count for you to qualify in a final. So if you want to play, multiple games a week, that's awesome. I encourage you to kind of think through maybe playing different player counts if you're going to do that. But you can definitely play the same player count, multiple scenarios, but that's not going to help you as far as that requirement of 3 different scenarios. And so the idea is that if you can play 2 months and need to take 1 month off, that's fine. You can still qualify for the final depending on how you do. or if you just want to play about every other week or every 3 weeks, you could still play. If you do well, you qualify for the final match. Here we have a note on the discard pile needing to be face up and face down, depending on what's discarded. There's going to be a place to record your victory and other game data. And here we have a note on season points. For this season, we're going to reward players not just for winning, but also for crossing the final point threshold, whether they win or not, as well as which chapter they ended. And so, for example, if in a 4-player game where 2 players both reached 27 points, but 1 player had 28, each would get 1 point for that, and then the winner would also get an additional point depending on which chapter they ended. And so in summary here, a losing player can gain 0 to 1 season points when they play, while a winning player can gain 2 to 3 season points for each game they win. Okay, so some of this is going to be a little confusing just because you can't see it. So I'm going to switch from this to look at our scenarios to see how this comes to life. Okay, so this is the first scenario for a 2-player game. So the players are going to use the 2-player mix-up 1 setup card, and then they're going to determine randomly where the players are seating and determine randomly who's going to have the initiative. And then the player without initiative will pick first, and they can pick either a leader or a lore card, and then continue the draft as normal. So the court will be random as well, so we don't know what the court cards will be before we start, but we know this, so we can prep, we can think through, okay, which of these leaders is the best. Here's the setup, here are the planets involved, here are the lore cards available. Do I want a leader first, or do I want a lore first? So you can go ahead and start thinking about that right now and talk about it in the Woodland Warriors chat. So we have a section for strategy and discussions like that. So this is going to be the 2-player setup for the draft. So this is the scenario for 2 players. Okay. This is the 3-player scenario we're going to have to start. We have Fuel Drinker, Overseer again, but this time we have Quartermaster and Corsair. And then for lore cards, we have Sprinter Drives, Gate Ports, Force Beams, and Survivor Overrides. So again, the player order is random. The initiative order is going to be random. The court is going to be random, but this is known. This is how you're going to set up your game when you play a league game for this first 2-week period. Is you're going to use Frontiers, you're going to use these 4 leader cards and these 4 lore cards, and then just do a 3-player draft. And again, there's not necessarily a clear, better position, but we want the league to kind of figure that out and kind of figure that out together. And so this is the 3-player scenario, and let's look at the 4-player scenario. All right, so 4-player scenario, we have Fuel Drinker and Overseer again for a 3rd time. We have Corsair, Agitator, and Quartermaster. And then we got Survival Overrides, Force Beams, Predictive Sensors, Sprinter Drives, Gate Ports. Frontiers, so the only sector that's taken out is a sector that has no fuel planet. So all 4 fuel planets are going to be in play. And this is going to be a very interesting setup. Now, I think as, from my point of view, I don't think there is a clear-cut must-pick leader. I do think Sprinter Drives is a very strong lore card, and Sprinter Drives could be worth just first picking every time, but maybe not, because if you get Sprinter Drives but forced to take Agitator, that may not be what you want to do with your game. At the same time, maybe that's worth it just to take Sprinter Drives. You don't care what leader you get. As far as leaders, we do have Fuel Drinker. One thing to think about is that Fuel Drinker is getting 2 fuel, and each other leader here has a fuel they start with, and so the supply may be lower just because of that. So something to keep in mind. But yeah, I am curious to see what you guys think. Let me know either in a comment below or join the league and talk about it there. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.